Hello and welcome to the final video of the series where I'm setting out to rank all 25 of the movies released by Pixar Animation Studios. This ranking has been broken down into 5 parts, so each video covers 5 movies. This is the 5th and final video where I'll be ranking my choices for places 5 through 1. Let's get into it. This is the last time you'll have to hear this spiel. This is a least to most favorite list, not a worst to best list. My personal taste is the only thing this ranking is based on, so it may look very different from what you'd expect. I think that makes things more interesting, so whether you agree or disagree, please leave a comment with your own thoughts. This video will also contain spoilers just in case you haven't seen all the movies yet. Now, without further ado, please sit back and enjoy the top 5 entries in my Pixar ranking.
Number 5. Toy Story 3.
Toy Story as a trilogy is perfect to me, and I really sort of wish that our journey with Woody, Buzz, and the gang had been left at this. Toy Story 3 did a masterful job handling themes of growing up, letting go, and moving forward. The film respects its viewers and the attachment we've developed to this collection of toys by not only giving us a fun adventure, but the most wonderfully bittersweet closing chapter. I don't like watching Andy give his toys away to Bonnie, but I know that we need it. The right thing isn't always easy, and even though the ending of Toy Story 3 makes me sad, I also feel fulfilled with a sense of peace. The very nature of life is growth and change, and this proves to be true for Andy as he prepares to begin the next chapter of his life. For those of us who were brought up with the Toy Story movies, we were a similar age to Andy for this one, and the parallels we were able to draw to our own lives at this time only served to make the film hit harder. That type of thing is extremely special and earned slowly over the years, and it puts Toy Story 3 in a league of its own in terms of sentimental impact and value. The conflict between Woody and the rest of the toys is interesting here. We know Woody is telling the truth that Andy wasn't throwing them away, but I can't blame them for not putting a ton of belief in that. Andy hadn't played with them in years, and they had the opportunity for a new life at Sunnyside. Of course, thanks to Lotso, that supposed paradise becomes a nightmare, but it makes for an entertaining time. I love the prison break plot, and the climax at the landfill incinerator does not let down. I'm not sure why Pixar decided to make us watch our beloved cast of toys join hands and bravely accept their fate as they move towards their fiery demise, but I know it struck a chord inside all of us. When I reflect on this scene, sometimes I just have to laugh at the absurdity, but if I'm actually watching the movie, you know I'm holding back tears. It's not even the idea of the toys dying that gets me most. It's the way they unify and stick together. These toys may move on from Andy, but they don't move on from each other. We meet quite a few new characters in Toy Story 3. Ken is pretty funny, and his side plot with Barbie is great. The main newcomer to discuss is obviously Lotso. He experienced being replaced by his kid, and it destroyed him, turning him into a cruel dictator.
Authority should derive from the consent of the governed, not from the threat of force.
Even though I think Lotso is a strong character, I hate his guts. If he can't be happy, no one can. And even after the toys save his sorry ass, he sends them to their deaths.
I think the fuck not, you trick ass bitch.
Our toys showed eventual grace and understanding in the face of the pain of Andy moving on from them. I know Lotso's situation wasn't the same, but it still underlines the core differences between them. Lotso was selfish, putting his own desire to be the most important ahead of everything. Woody and the gang still recognize that their purpose is to make a kid happy, even if that kid is no longer Andy. The animation and music in Toy Story 3 is tremendous. The movie feels bright and it looks great, and Randy Newman only expands on his past top-tier work to score the film and provide new songs. He is so important to Toy Story. Growing up is painful. Letting go of our childhood selves can feel like ripping away the very core of who we are. But like I said, life is change. It's possible to accept this and move forward, and adult life can also be a wonderful thing, but there's nothing like being a kid. The Toy Story movies remind me to enjoy and revel in the present, but to stay aware that life will inevitably evolve, and that's okay. Moving on is hard, it hurts, but you can feel fulfilled in and honor what you had, and new beginnings are beautiful things.
Number 4. Cars.
I love Cars, and I will say that with my whole chest. I don't think the movie is flawless cinema, but I feel a fierce drive to defend it from its many critics flinging an endless amount of shit its way. On a surface level, the movie can seem juvenile, but Pixar crafting a universe about sentient vehicles doesn't strike me as out of the ordinary for a studio that made its name on living toys and the monsters in our closets. The plot in Cars is not that inventive, and Lightning's character arc is about as cookie cutter as it gets, but I still thoroughly enjoy the movie. Not to plug myself, but I'm gonna plug myself. I did a video essay a while back about why I think Cars is good, and one of the points I made is that simple is not synonymous with bad. A lot of tropes exist because they work, and a simple plot or arc done well can be an extremely effective thing. Lightning's journey from arrogant jerk to humble car with an engine of gold has a strong impact on me, and it's all because of Radiator Springs and its inhabitants. Radiator Springs is my single most favorite location in any Pixar film. Its charm is off the charts, and seeing the neon signs lighted up always sends a rush of serotonin right through me. Lightning starts out with a disgust for the place. It's keeping him from his big race, and therefore it's like his personal hell. But it really doesn't take too long for him to begin gaining an appreciation for the town. Sally tells Lightning its history, and the segment dedicated to Route 66 and American small town nostalgia is so well done. Sally's passion for the place is infectious, and it immediately changes the way Lightning sees things. Mater is one of the main reasons people hate on Cars, but he's quite important to Lightning's arc. Yes, Mater can be obnoxious, but his innocent benevolence makes him one of the first Cars Lightning has met that actually wants to get to know him. Mater's friendship takes Lightning by surprise, but you can see how much it affects him, and it's also his entry point to getting to know the rest of the town. Sally sees something in Lightning, and after she extends a show of trust, he doesn't want to let her down. She teaches him to slow down and appreciate what's around him, and it's not long before they develop a genuine connection. Lightning makes it a point to fix up Radiator Springs and do what he can to help restore the town to its former glory. He does this out of an authentic care for the place, but also because he knows how much it will mean to Sally and the rest of the town's residents. This is the first true display that Lightning has changed, and it's followed closely by another. All Lightning cared about since arriving in Radiator Springs was leaving it, but when the time comes, he doesn't want to go. As he helps transform the town, he transformed himself, and these lines say it best.
Thanks for everything.
It's just a road.
No. It was much more than that.
Now for the most important aspect of Cars, Lightning's relationship with Doc Hudson. After Lightning fails to successfully race for his freedom, he becomes frustratingly fixated on Doc and the churn. Then he discovers Doc's piston cups, and he goes from hating Doc to respecting him deeply. But Doc still wants Lightning gone, as he's a constant reminder of his painful past in racing. As Lightning begins to shed his selfishness, Doc starts to overflow, and he ignores the clear positive effect that Lightning has had on the community. Luckily, Doc doesn't take too long to right his wrongs, and he's there at Lightning's race acting as his pit crew chief. What Lightning does for Strip Weathers during the race is the ultimate test to prove how much he's changed. When he sees the king, he sees Doc, and he refuses to let a painful history repeat itself. I think that watching this, in a way, heals Doc, and for Lightning, it feels better than winning ever could. The animation in Cars is stellar. I think it still looks terrific, and the designs within the universe are both creative and appealing. I've already sung the praises of the design for Radiator Springs, of course, but it doesn't hurt to mention how marvelous it looks one more time. Randy Newman took a break for a couple of movies, but he returned to score Cars with a fantastic effort. My favorite bit is when Lightning and Sally take their drive together. When it comes down to it, Cars is about a lonely guy who values fame and success far too much, learning to connect with others and truly care about things. He experiences authenticity, finding a home and a family, and he never looks back. The film is steeped in quaint nostalgia, fun world building, and entertaining antics, and it's a movie I'm thrilled to have in Pixar's repertoire.
Number 3. Ratatouille.
Who remembers that phase of the pandemic? Ratatouille is truly one of the most strange and unique movies I've seen. I never imagined the concept of a rat chef pulling a guy's hair like a puppet to cook could have been executed so effectively. And that in itself is a big part of why I love the film. The premise of Ratatouille is very out there, but the movie never feels ridiculous to me. I buy into it, and that's an impressive feat that Brad Bird and Pixar deserve high praise for. Remy is a character with a passion, a genuine love and respect for the art form of cooking. He's willing to take great risks in order to pursue this, and that alone is compelling to me. Somebody who lives and breathes their art will always have me on their side. Being a rat, Remy's dreams of being a chef seem distant, if not completely impossible, but he takes inspiration from his hero, Gusteau. Gusteau always preached that anyone can cook, and Remy keeps this mantra in his heart to drive him forward. The obstacles Remy faces aren't too unlike what some people experience in reality. Remy is a figure for the disadvantaged, and his journey can be a metaphor for the lower class artists with dreams who feel like there's no clear route for them to take their passions forward. The whole rat thing is simply an exaggeration, making the theme more dynamic and entertaining. To complement the main theme, we have Linguini and Colette. While initially dismissed as a hopeless klutz, once it's thought that Linguini has some true talent, he's promoted and sails quickly to the top. Colette has a more realistic experience, branching off of the prejudice that Remy faces. She's the only woman in the kitchen, and she's clearly the most talented person there, but she's never gotten a smidge of the praise and opportunity Linguini so easily achieves. Then comes the big bad Anton Ego, the villainous, scary critic whom artists fear. Ego's biggest fault is that he's become so pretentious and involved in gatekeeping the art of cooking that he's closed off his mind. Gusteau's notion that anyone can cook disgusts him and comes across as ludicrous. But Remy makes a brilliant decision when he chooses to serve the critic ratatouille. It's considered a peasant dish, but once Ego tries it, we see the profound impact immediately. In a heart-stopping sequence, Ego flashes back to his childhood when his mother would serve him the very same dish. It's comforting and warm and safe and nostalgic. An experience like this can hardly be put into words. Ego's pompous persona drops in an instant, and he gobbles up the rest of his dish. This scene is one of Pixar's great achievements in my eyes. And the article Ego writes about his most recent experience at Gusteau's is probably my favorite thing in any Pixar movie. His comments about critics and the discovery of the new strike a chord within me. If there's one thing I love about people, it's our ability to change our minds. It's become exceedingly rare these days, as ingrained biases and pride often get in the way, but I can always respect when somebody reevaluates and reconsiders their stance on something. There's absolutely no shame in it, and Ego does that here. He revisits Gusteau's infamous saying of anyone can cook, and realizes what it truly means.
Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere.
Ratatouille's animation is marvelous. It feels rich and looks great, and I enjoy the overall style. The human character designs are fun, although not my favorite. I prefer the look of the rats. And as for the score, in my opinion, this is one of Michael Giacchino's crown jewels. The score inspires feelings of romanticism and passion that are reflective of the story and its themes. Not to mention, it sounds flat out gorgeous. Ratatouille is a stunning achievement in not only animation, but cinema in general. The movie is highly watchable, pairing amusing elements with incredible insight and commentary. If I were ranking these Pixar movies on theme alone, Ratatouille would easily come out on top. Anyone does not equal everyone, and this story doesn't push the idealistic notion that you can do anything you set your mind to. Rather, it tells us that there are no prerequisites for being someone who creates art, other than having the talent and the passion for it.
Number 2. Toy Story 2.
Easily my favorite of the Toy Story movies. Toy Story 2 had huge pressure as Pixar's first sequel, and the production was quite a roller coaster. But the way the movie came out, you'd never know it. This film explores themes of identity, fear of change, abandonment, and the subsequent trauma that comes with it. Early in the movie, Andy accidentally damages Woody's arm while playing, so he decides not to take him to cowboy camp. This sends Woody into a downward spiral of worrying that Andy will lose interest in him. With these things already present inside, when Woody meets the prospector Jesse and Bullseye and discovers his iconic status in Woody's roundup, he's much more enthralled with it than he'd be otherwise. The paranoia of his supposed irrelevance with Andy makes his importance as part of this new group very appealing. The first Toy Story was all about Woody teaching Buzz what it means to be a toy and the joy of being loved by a kid. This time the tables are turned and it's Buzz who must remind Woody of his values. In the museum, Woody would be immortalized and adored permanently. No worry of being damaged or left behind, but he'd also never experience the happiness being with Andy brings him. What's the point of being in pristine condition if you can't live? Embracing vulnerability is hard, but it's worth it. We know that Woody knows this, and thankfully it doesn't take long for him to come to his senses. Jessie was a phenomenal addition to the cast of characters in Toy Story. Her story of abandonment and the emotional damage she sustained as a result is heartbreaking. The "When Somebody Loved Me" segment of the film is one of Pixar's saddest moments for me. Seeing Jessie have to watch the kid she loves more than anything completely lose interest in her and give her away just hurts. Many people have experienced this in real life relationships, but for Jessie specifically as a toy, Emily is her whole life and she loses that. It's very important that Woody hears Jessie's story. It lets him sympathize with her and helps convince him to go to Japan. But once he decides to go back to Andy, it comes with much more weight because he knows what's coming down the road. Andy will eventually reach a point when he's done with his toys. With Woody, Jessie's story with Emily is proof of that. And the fact that Woody chooses to return anyways, saying,
"You're right, Prospector, I can't stop Andy from growing up. But I wouldn't miss it for the world."
That's powerful stuff. Time passes and life changes. We can't stop it, and it's scary, but we can still choose to be present and enjoy what's happening while we're still in it. Choosing not to participate in something simply because it will end is a great way to ensure that you never experience anything worthwhile in life. It's also lovely that Woody invites Jessie and Bullseye to come with him, giving them another chance at being loved by a kid. Unfortunately, the prospector would rather lay behind glass in a museum, but that's his problem. I'm sure he came around to his new reality.
You'll like Amy. She's an artist.
In addition to the fantastic themes explored in Toy Story 2, there's so much fun injected into the plot. I love the rescue mission the rest of the toys go on when they're trying to save Woody. Buzz has a humorous callback to the first film when he encounters a version of himself that still thinks he's a space ranger. And Rex gets a great side plot involving the Buzz video game. The way he gets to live out the game in real life is priceless. I also think the inclusion of Zurg in the Star Wars references work really well. This was still 1999, so the animation isn't crazy good, but it was an improvement on the original. The sequence where Woody gets all fixed up may just be the most satisfying scene in all of animation. I'm very partial to the settings in this movie for some reason. Al's apartment and Al's toy barn are places I really enjoy spending the bulk of the film. And Randy Newman's score is terrific, of course. The Woody's Roundup theme song is perfect. I just have a deep-rooted love for Toy Story 2 that I can't fully explain. To me, it's the most fun and appealing Toy Story with strong emotional themes. And it also feels the most safe, as it's in the middle of what was the original trilogy. It sprinkles in themes to prepare us for what's coming in Toy Story 3, but for the time being, we just get to exist with the toys in their glory days with Andy. It's an amazing movie, and it's about as Pixar as it gets.
Number 1. Monsters, Inc.
Monsters, Inc. has been my favorite Pixar film for a long time now, and I don't imagine that will ever change. To me, this film is the perfect combination of story, character growth, action, humor, music, and innovation. Monsters, Inc. is like a diamond. No matter which way you turn it, its many different facets all shine. Toy Story and A Bug's Life were creative in their own right, but Monsters Inc. was the first time Pixar showed us the extent of what they're capable of when it comes to creative world building. Taking the concept of monsters in the closet and turning it into an entire society and economy was genius. Monsters scare kids because they need their screams to power their world. It's a delicious premise, and Monstropolis is a setting full of imagination and delightful gags. A prevalent theme in Monsters Inc. is that of exposing corruption and finding a better way. Randall is thought to be the big bad at the company, but Mike and Sully discover that the trail leads all the way up to CEO Waternoose. Scaring kids for energy is just part of life for these monsters, and since they've been fed the idea that kids are dangerous and toxic, it makes it easier to exploit them guilt-free. Sully is the best scarer at Monsters Incorporated, and he's a loyal company guy who follows the status quo. But all it takes is actually interacting with a human kid for a short time, and everything he thinks he knows unravels. Sully sees the impact of what monsters do to kids firsthand, and it breaks his heart. This is likely a commentary on corporate America.
Corporate America. I hate corporate America.
We should always question the systems in place and look for more ethical solutions. Luckily for the monsters, they discover that children's laughter is much more powerful than screams anyways, so not only does this new practice stop emotionally harming kids, it's better for the economy as well. I wish the more ethical option was also the most efficient option in real life, but unfortunately we're not quite there yet. I want to touch on the theme of friendship. The movie revolves around the relationship between Mike and Sully, and then extends to include the relationship between Sully and Boo. Sully's connection with Boo drives him to do things that Mike views as illogical and crazy, and it does eventually drive them apart, but the strength of their friendship and their desire to do what's right brings them back together. Sully is the main one to fall in love with Boo, but Mike comes to care deeply for her as well. Their feelings towards her are so untainted and powerful, and Boo's innocent love for them in return is the heart of the film. Boo is probably the cutest kid that's ever been in a movie. And Mike is an incredible friend. He did take some time to reevaluate and readjust his priorities, but his support for Sully prevails. Thinking about Mike painstakingly piecing Boo's door back together so Sully can see her again makes my heart want to explode. Monsters Inc. has no shortage of emotion. It's central to the plot as Monstropolis literally runs off of screams and then laughter, and the movie itself serves up tons of humor, excitement, and sorrow. The most impactful moments for me involve Sully and Boo. When Sully realizes Boo is scared of him, when he has to say goodbye to her and she doesn't understand, and the absolutely perfect ending scene all serve to elevate how much this movie means. I adore the character designs for Mike and Sully, as well as many of the other monsters in the film. As an earlier work from Pixar, the animation in Monsters Inc. isn't the best ever, but it still looks great to me. The work done on Sully in particular is so impressive. John Goodman and Billy Crystal brought their characters to life with a couple of masterful voice performances. Randy Newman's score for Monsters Inc., not to sound like a broken record, is brilliant. From the bombastic scare floor theme to the emotionally poignant moments with Boo, Newman crafted a soundtrack that brings this world and its characters to life with massive amounts of charm and electricity. Descriptors don't really do it justice, but the score is so vital to this film. Monsters, Inc. is one of my favorite movies of all time. Its bright creativity is inspiring, and its strong emotion gives it lasting weight. The humor, high-stakes action, and well-paced plot make it eternally rewatchable, and at the end of the day, I just can't get enough of this story, these characters, and this world. When a movie is this creative, insightful, entertaining, and emotionally resonant, you know you've got something special. Pixar are masters of their craft for this one. And that's the list. This concludes both the 5th installment of my Pixar ranking and the series as a whole. If you've been following along, I'd like to thank you for doing so. Pixar movies tend to have a certain special quality about them that makes them mean so much to us, and it's been an honor delving into this collection of films. Emily St. James of Vox.com has said that one of Pixar's greatest strengths when it comes to its storytelling is how often its stories aren't about individuals overcoming all odds to win the day, but about individuals abrogating their own desires in favor of what's best for the community. I think this sums up largely why Pixar movies resonate so much. They're wildly creative and engaging stories, but they also always deliver gorgeous displays of the goodness that we're capable of. Art that's not only entertaining, but meaningfully relevant and optimistic is important, and that's where Pixar has built their home. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe, and head over to the Trove to check out more rankings, trivia, and video essays. I'll have playlists linked in the description down below. Make sure to leave a comment telling me your own favorite Pixar movies, and expect a special video coming soon. There aren't just 25 Pixar movies anymore. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.